Our daughter has been cast in a television program.
Congratulations!
No, our other daughter.
Not this one.
The film is called That's Not Me. It's about an aspiring actor called Polly Cuthbert, played by Alice, who has an identical twin sister who, over the course of the film, gets cast in an HBO show opposite Jared Leto, who she starts dating. And basically, her twin sister's success ruins her life. So it's a film about...
comedy.
Yeah, and it's a comedy.
I'm going to Hollywood.
You have representation here in the United States?
No.
Any auditions?
No.
Meetings?
No.
You have any idea what you're doing?
Not really.
It's interesting for us because it's the first time that we've watched it with an audience that's not primarily an English-speaking audience. And our film is very kind of talky and there's lots of dialogue, and it was interesting to see how the audience responded to different jokes as opposed to how Australian audiences have responded, or even the audiences in London and New Zealand and the US. It was really, really lovely and interesting.
Yeah.
So such an incredible honour and achievement for us to be able to screen the film in the country where we conceived and wrote the film. We just spent a week in Paris for the first time since we were living here writing the film, and it was just so bizarre and surreal for us to walk those same streets knowing that we had this film that was just an idea in our heads when we were walking around in Paris. So to screen it in France to an audience of in the country where we wrote it is just incredible.
No, that's my sister, Amy. I'm Polly Cuthbert.
She has a twin.
Thanks so much for coming in, Amy.
It's definitely something personal. I think people who are in the creative arts tend to have that point in their life where they'll think about, is this really what I want to do, and why do I want to do it, and what would happen if I decided to do something else, because that would be okay. But for some reason, people consider it a failure if you decide to drop out of a creative arts degree, or a career, and do something else. So it's definitely like personal for us. It's as we are in like the early stages of our career, figuring out if this is what we want to do, and I think it is what we want to do. And also for me, the film's also about female relationships and the competitive nature of the way we compare ourselves to other people and how destructive that is. Yeah. We were quite inspired by a lot of American indie comedies and British as well. I think often Australian senses of humour on screen can be quite big and quite broad, and we wanted to do something that was a bit more deadpan and where the comedy came out of the situation rather than big performances, which is not to say that doesn't happen in Australia, but it's not a huge thing at the moment, so it'd be nice to see more of that.
I'm not a child. Do you need money for a taxi?
Yes, please.
In terms of the production in Australia, most films are funded by government screen agencies, as opposed. And I think there's a bit of that in Europe. It's hard for us to compare, not having worked on European or American films, but I know that one of the key differences, at least between Australia and American films, is that there's a lot more government funding. Most films in Australia, major productions, have government funding involved. There's not a lot of independent films like ours. I think increasingly more so as the equipment becomes cheaper to access. I think there's a lot more independently minded cinema happening in Australia.
I want to thank the entire cast and crew. This belongs to you as much as it does me.
Just on what you were talking about before about what the festival means to us, I think it's such an incredible opportunity for Australian filmmakers to be able to come to Saint-Tropez and screen to an audience of people who have such a love of Australian cinema. Bernard and Claire and some of the other people that we've met at the festival have film knowledge of Australian cinema that some people, like most people in Australia, don't have. Like,
I
it's
think
quite
they're probably
incredible.
the biggest Australian cinephiles I've ever met.
And I think for us, in some ways, that's also the message of the film, is that if this is what you want to do, you've got to kind of be open to many opportunities. And I think there's a key moment at the beginning of the film when she turns down a commercial opportunity because she doesn't like the idea of it, but that then leads her sister to be able to do all of the things that Holly wanted to do. So I think we're both really open to any sort of opportunities that come from this. The reason that we did this film and having to do it the way that we did was always so that we could hopefully build on our careers and be able to have more opportunities. So yes, if anyone's watching, I will take the
I'll
job.
happily make
yes,
film in Paris,
yes,
wherever. Yes,
yeah,
please.
anyway, yeah.